Okay, hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So I keep trying to schedule this for 30 minutes later, but for some reason my scheduling wasn't working. It kept saying it has begun, so we're just gonna start and hopefully we'll spend not more than 30 minutes on today's session. The room is a bit dark. Don't know what else I can do. Okay, so we've been reading this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and we just finished chapter 1 last Saturday, and we're beginning from chapter 2 today. So I bought the book on Amazon, the hard copy, and this is a very amazing book. We're just reading together and analyzing along the way. I bet you that you would be grateful you read this book, so try as much as you can to get this book. Let me try a portrait session and see if that works for me. Okay. For some reason it's not working, so sorry about that. So chapter 2, it says happiness is a problem. Let's see how happiness is a problem. So we'll just start reading as we read normally. If you have your book, read with me. If you don't have your book, just listen. So we begin. About 2,500 years ago, in the Himalayan foothills of present-day Nepal, there lived a great palace, a king who was going to have a son. For this son, the king had a particularly grand idea. He would make the child's life perfect. The child would never know a moment of suffering. Every need, every desire would be accounted for at all times. The king built high walls around the palace that prevented the prince from knowing the outside world. He spoiled the child, lavishing him with food and gifts, surrounding him with servants who catered to his every whim. And just as planned, the child grew up ignorant of the routine cruelties of human existence. All of the prince's childhood went on like this. But despite the endless luxury and opulence, the prince became kind of a pissed off young man. Soon, every experience felt empty and valueless. The problem was that no matter what his father gave him, it never seemed enough, never meant anything. So late one night, the prince stalked out of the palace to see what was beyond its walls. He had a servant drive him through the local village, and what he saw horrified him. For the first time in his life, the prince saw human suffering. He saw sick people, old people, homeless people, people in pain, even people dying. The prince returned to the palace and found himself in a sort of existential crisis. Not knowing how to process what he'd seen, he got all emo about everything and complained a lot. And as is so typical of young men, the prince ended up blaming his father for the very things his father had tried to do for him. It was the riches, the prince thought, that had made him so miserable and that had made life seem so meaningless. He decided to run away. But the prince was more like his father than he knew. He had grand ideas too. He wouldn't just run away. He would give up his royalty, his family, and all of his possessions and live in the streets, sleeping in debts like an animal. There he would starve himself, torture himself, and beg for scraps of food from strangers for the rest of his life. The next night, the prince snuck out of the palace again, this time never to return. For years, he lived as a bum, a discarded and forgotten remnant of society. The dog shit cake to the bottom of the social totem pole. Don't know what that means. And as planned, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, hunger, pain, loneliness, and decay. He confronted the brink of death itself, often limited to eating a single nut each day. A few years went by, then a few more, and then nothing happened. The prince began to notice that this life of suffering wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. It wasn't bringing him the insight he had desired. It wasn't revealing any deeper mystery of the world or its ultimate purpose. In fact, the prince came to know what the rest of us have always kind of known, that suffering totally sucks and is not necessarily that meaningful either. As with being rich, there's no value in suffering when it's done without purpose. And soon, the prince came to the conclusion that his grand idea, like his father's, was in fact a fucking terrible idea, and he should probably go do something else instead. Totally confused, the prince cleaned himself up and went and found a big tree near a river. He decided that he would sit under that tree and not get up until he came up with another grand idea. As the legend goes, the confused prince sat under that tree for 49 days. We won't delve into the biological viability of sitting in that same spot for 49 days. But let's just say that in that time, the prince came to a number of profound realizations. One of those realizations was this: that life itself is a form of suffering. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they have no family. People with a family suffer because of their family. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures. People who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of their abstention. This isn't to say that all suffering is equal. Some suffering is certainly more painful than other suffering, but we all must suffer nonetheless. Years later, the prince will build his own philosophy and share it with the world. And this would be its first and central tenet: that pain and loss are inevitable, and we should let go of trying to resist them. The prince will later become known as the Buddha. And in case you haven't heard of him, he was kind of a big deal. Now, just want to chip in something here after that verse. Honestly, this morning when I went out for my walk, I was just thinking, I mean, I've always known this, but I was just thinking about it again, that I say God actually created this life to have like a balance. You see the thing the poor envy so much about the rich. Oh, the rich will have so much luxury. The rich, they are the ones that can do this. The rich, they are the ones that can do that. The rich are also silently envying, like they wish they had the life of the poor. That quiet, silent life, you know, nobody, you're not in the face of people and all of that. So it doesn't matter, like, you know, things always seem better when you are looking at it from the outside. So if you are not in something, like, you always be wishing and desiring you were in that position. You feel like life is better the other way. And I've made peace with the fact with my life, how it's been destined to go. Like, if there are certain things I'm chasing and pursuing and they're not coming, I've tried to make peace with them, because who knows it. When Solomon said all is vanity, vanity upon vanity, all is vanity, this is somebody who was the wisest man. He has seen life in all its ramifications. Like, whether you are poor, a suffering awaits you. Whether you are rich, a suffering awaits you. Whether you have children, I think there's a saying Yoruba people say about You know, when it comes to childbearing, people who have children and people who don't have children. There's a saying that I heard someone say, they say about I'll just speak it in Yoruba and I'll try to translate it. They say, hey, ẹni bá bímọ, ikú ọmọ ló máa kú. Ẹni tí ò bímọ náà, ikú ọmọ náà ló máa padà pa. So for somebody who has a child, what's eventually going to kill them is something about that child. Either worry about that child or thinking about that child or anything, it's a thought about that child that's going to kill you. And for someone who does not have a child, it's still thoughts about children that is still going to kill you. So like either, so I'll just carry on. So there's a premise that underlines a lot of our assumptions and beliefs. The premise is that happiness is algorithmic, that it can be worked for and earned and achieved as if it were getting accepted to law school or building a really complicated logo set. If I achieve X, then I can be happy. If I look like Y, then I can be happy. If I can be with a person like Z, then I can be happy. This premise, though, is the problem. Happiness is not a solvable equation. Dissatisfaction and unease are inherent parts of human nature, and as we'll see, necessary components to creating consistent happiness. The Buddha argued this from a theological and philosophical perspective. I will make the same argument in this chapter, but I will make it from a biological perspective and with pandas. The misadventures of disappointment panda, that's a heading. If I could invent a superhero, I would invent one called Disappointment Panda. He would wear a cheesy eye mark and a shirt with a giant capital T on it that was way too small for his big panda belly. And his superpower would be to tell people harsh truths about themselves that they needed to hear but didn't want to accept. He would go door to door like a Bible salesman and ring doorbells and say things like, sure, making a lot of money makes you feel good, but it won't make your kids love you. Or, if you have to ask yourself if you trust your wife, then you probably don't. Or, what you consider friendship is really just your constant attempt to impress people. Then he'll tell the homeowner to have a nice day and saunter on down the next house. It will be awesome and sick and sad and uplifting and necessary. After all, the greatest truths in life are usually the most unpleasant to hear. Disappointment Panda would be the hero that none of us want, but all of us will need. He would be the proverbial vegetables to our mental diet of junk food. He would make our lives better despite making us feel worse. He'd make us stronger by tearing us down, brighten our future by showing us the darkness. Listening to him would be like watching a movie where the hero dies in the end. You love it even more, despite making you feel horrible because it feels real. So while we're here, allow me to put on my disappointment panda mask and drop another unpleasant truth on you. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. It is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. We have evolved to always live with a certain degree of dissatisfaction and insecurity, because it's the mildly dissatisfied and insecure creature that's going to do the most work to innovate and survive. We are wired to become dissatisfied with whatever we have and satisfied by only what we do not have. Oh God. This constant dissatisfaction has kept our species fighting and striving, building and conquering. So no, our own pain and misery aren't a bug of human evolution, they are a feature. Pain, in all its forms, in our body's most effective means of spurring action. Take something as simple as stubbing your toe. If you are like me, when you stub your toe, you scream enough four-letter words to make Pope Francis cry. You also probably blame some poor inanimate objects for your suffering. Stupid table, you say. Or maybe you even go as far as to question your entire interior design philosophy based on your throbbing foot. What kind of idiot puts a table there anyway? Seriously. But I digress. That horrible stubbed toe-induced pain, the one you and I and the Pope hate so much, exists for an important reason. Physical pain is a product of our nervous system, a feedback mechanism to give us a sense of our own physical proportions, where we can and cannot move, and what we can and cannot touch. When we exceed those slim limits, our nervous system duly punishes us to make sure that we pay attention and never do it again. And this pain, as much as we hate it, is useful. Pain is what teaches us what to pay attention to when we are young or careless. It helps shows us what's good for us versus what's bad for us. It helps us understand and adhere to our own limitations. It teaches us to not fork around near hot stoves or metal objects into electric sockets. Therefore, it's not always beneficial to avoid pain and seek pleasure, since pain can, at times, be life or death important to our well-being. But pain is not merely physical. As anyone who has had to sit through the first Star Wars prequel can tell you, we humans are capable of experiencing acute psychological pain as well. In fact, research has found that our brains don't register much difference between physical pain and psychological pain. So when I tell you that my first girlfriend cheated on me and leaving me felt like having an ice pick slowly inserted into the center of my heart, that's because, well, it hurts so much I might as well have had an ice pick slowly inserted into the center of my heart. Like physical pain, our psychological pain is an indication of something out of equilibrium, whatever. Some limitation that has been exceeded. And like our physical pain, our psychological pain is not necessarily always bad or even undesirable. In some cases, experiencing emotional or psychological pain can be healthy or necessary. Just like stubbing our toe teaches us to walk into fewer tables, the emotional pain of rejection or failure teaches us how to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. And this is what's so dangerous about a society that coddles itself more and more from the inevitable discomforts of life. We lose the benefits of experiencing healthy doses of pain, a loss that disconnects us from the reality of the world around us. I don't think life was designed without pain. I don't think anybody has it all. In fact, it's almost impossible to find someone who has it all. The only problem or the only issue would be that what is this person's pain point might not be what is this person's pain point. But as for pain, we all go through pain. All right, let's continue. You may salivate at the thought of a problem-free life, full of everlasting happiness and eternal compassion. But back here on earth, the problems never cease. Seriously, problems don't end. Disappointment Panda just dropped by. We had margaritas, and he told me all about it. Problems never fucking go away, he said. They just improve, and that's true. Oh, I wish for the days when my problem in life was just how to pass my WAEC or how to pass JAMB and get admission into the university. I miss those days. I miss the days when my problem was that I didn't have money to afford the kind of food I wanted to eat. Now I can afford the kind of food I wanted to eat, so I want to eat. My problem has is now in multiples, and they're not even things money can solve. So problems don't stop, they just evolve. Anyways, let's continue. Warren Buffett's got money problem. He drunk hobo down at Quick Matt's got money problems. Buffett's just got better money problems than the hobo. All of life is like this. No, let me read that line again. Warren Buffett's got money problems. The drunk hobo down at Quick Matt's got money problems. Buffett's just got better money problems than the hobo, and all of life is like this. Life is essentially an endless series of problems, Mark, the panda, told me. He sipped his drink and adjusted the little pink umbrella. The solution to one problem is merely the creation of the next one. A moment passed, and then I wondered where the fuck the talking panda came from. And while we're at it, who made these margaritas? Don't hope for a life without problems, the panda said. There's no such thing. Instead, hope for a life full of good problems. And with that, he set his glass down, adjusted his sombrero, and sauntered off into the sunset. Another heading: happiness comes from solving problems. Problems are a constant in life. When you solve your head problem by buying a gym membership, you create new problems like having to get up early to get to the gym on time, sweating like a Met head for 30 minutes on an elliptical, and then getting showered and changed for work so you don't stink up the whole office. When you solve your problem of not spending enough time with your partner by designating Wednesday night date night, you generate new problems, such as figuring out what to do every Wednesday that you both won't hate, making sure you have enough money for nice dinners, rediscovering the chemistry and spark you two feel you've lost, and unraveling the logistics of working in a small bathtub filled with too many bubbles. Problems never stop. They merely get exchanged or upgraded. Happiness comes from solving problems. The key word here is solving. If you're finding your problems or feel like you don't have any problems, then you're going to make yourself miserable. If you feel like you have problems that you can't solve, you will likewise make yourself feel miserable. The secret sauce is in the solving of the problems, not in the having problems in the first place. To be happy, we need something to solve. Happiness is therefore a form of action. It's an activity, not something that is passively bestowed upon you, not something that you magically discover in a top 10 article on the Huffington Post or from any specific guru or teacher. It doesn't magically appear when you finally make enough money to add on that extra room to the house. You don't find it waiting for you in a place, an idea, a job, or even a book for that matter. Happiness is a constant work in progress, because solving problems is a constant work in progress as well. Constant work in progress. The solutions to this problem will lay the foundations for tomorrow's problems. And so the circle continues. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. So as for problems, there will always be problem. But it's just saying that we should hope for the good kinds of problem. And that you only find happiness when, the problems that come, you find joy in solving them. So as for life being hard, it is life. As for problems occurring, there are problems. But if you find joy trying to solve them, trying to figure out, trying to make an answer in this or that, that is when you find true happiness. So it's a constant work in progress, just as problems is also constant. Sometimes those problems are simple. Eating good food, traveling to some new place, winning at the new video game you just bought. Other times, those problems are abstract and complicated, e.g., fixing your relationship with your mother, finding a career you can feel good about, developing better friendships. Whatever your problems are, the concept is the same. Solve problems, be happy. Unfortunately, for many people, life doesn't feel that simple. That's because they fuck things up in at least one of two ways. Number one, denial. Some people deny that their problems exist in the first place. And because they deny reality, they must constantly delude or distract themselves from reality. This may make them feel good in short term, but it leads to a life of insecurity, neuroticism, and emotional repression. Number two, victim mentality. Some choose to believe that there's nothing they can do to solve their problems, even when in fact they could. Even when they in fact could. Victims seek to blame others for their problems or blame outside circumstances. This may make them feel better in the short term, but it leads to a life of anger, helplessness, and despair. People deny and blame others for their problems for the simple reason that it's easy and feels good, while solving problem is hard and often feels bad. Forms of blame and denials give us a quick high. They are a way to temporarily escape our problems. And that escape can provide us a quick rush that makes us feel better. Highs come in many forms. Whether it's a substance like alcohol, the moral righteousness that comes from blaming others, or the thrill of some new risky adventures, highs are shallow and unproductive ways to go about one's life. Much of the self-help world is predicated on peddling highs to people rather than solving legitimate problems. Many self-help gurus teach you new forms of denial and pump you up with exercises that feel good in short term while ignoring the underlying issue. Remember, nobody who is actually happy has to stand in front of a mirror and tell himself that he's happy. Highs also generates addiction. The more you rely on them to feel better about your underlying problems, the more you will seek them out. In this sense, almost anything can become addictive, depending on the motivation behind using it. We all have our choosing methods to numb the pain of our problems, and in moderate doses, there is nothing wrong with this. But the longer we avoid and the longer we numb, the more painful it will be when we finally do confront our issues. So we'll be ending here today, page 33, and just before we begin this heading. So next Saturday, catch me here for a continuation of our book review. This is episode 3, so we've done 2 episodes. Is this episode 3 or episode 4 previously? So you can check those videos down on the channel, follow them so you catch up with where we are today. We hope to do this every Saturday. We've not been able to get a fixed time now, but anytime between 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. we'll come live for our book review. So if this is your first time here, welcome. If you find this interesting, click on the subscribe button and click on the bell so you know when I have new content on the channel. And to my returning subscribers, thank you for always. All right, guys, see you in next week. Bye bye.